Hi, and welcome to another review! So today, I am going to be reviewing Code Realize Future Blessings. If you have not seen the first one for Code Realize Guardians of Rebirth, I will put the link somewhere here. I don't know how it works yet, but it will be somewhere on this video. I recommend that you go watch it first, because Future Blessing is actually a fan disc following the events of Guardians of Rebirth, with some events happening at the same time, but it does not really influence the main storyline, and you need to know the storyline to be able to understand what's going on in this game. For Code Realize Future Blessings, I will once again go with my 5 criterias of evaluation. 1. The main storyline out of 10. How is it? 2. The mechanics out of 10. The side story, or the character stories, out of 10. The translation out of 10. And finally, the graphics out of 10. So just to make sure everyone's on the same boat, it's the graphics out of 10, the main story out of 10, the translation out of 10, the mechanics out of 10, and the side story out of 10. Then I will take all of the totals and make a grand total. If the game is over 5 out of 10, it's probably worth it. Now, to begin with, I always start with some questions that I've had during the game, or some questions that people ask me towards these games. Did I fall for a character? Yes, indeed I did. Yes, I did. I did fall for a character. It is the same character that I fell for Code Realize Guardians of Rebirth, which is Impey Barbicane. He is still my number one boo. I love him. He is my baby. Okay, but also, listen. Watson. Is there merch for this game? Once again, there is a lot of merch. If you look up Code Realize, you'll find everything. Especially on Goods Republic, not sponsored, you can find a lot of merch on Goods Republic related to Code Realize. Or on eBay, or on... There's a lot of places that you can find anything. As for the platform, this game, Future Blessings, with this title specifically, is available on PS Vita and on the Nintendo Switch. You can also buy the PlayStation 4 version, which encapsulates the first game, Code Realize Guardians of Rebirth, Future Blessings, and Wintertide Miracles, all under one title, which is Bouquet of Rainbows. That is available for the PlayStation 4, where you get all 3 games in one. Correction? Bouquet of Rainbows only have Code Realize Guardians of Rebirth and Future Blessings. My bad. Future Blessing. It is the first fan disc of Code Realize Guardians of Rebirth. It follows the event of the main game while exploring some other events that could have happened at the same time. Cardia, again, goes and falls in love with a new love interest, but also explores filial love with her brother. Not in a weird romantic way, just like reconnecting parental kind of thing. You can deepen your relationships with the previous bachelors or the previous romantic interests, and at the same time explore other options. Like I said, there is a new romantic interest that is available. It contains extra content that adds to the story. It's not mandatory to the game to understand the story, but it is very enjoyable. Another story of Lupin's gang is very enjoyable. It introduces new characters that are very endearing and lovable, and it gives you an extra reason to buy the game without just exploring already established romantic interests. Now, that being said, before I go any further into this review, it is important that I put out the triggers. So there is a trigger warning for blood, gore, parental rejection, trauma, like past trauma for romantic interests, and rejection, rebuttal, gun violence, gang violence. That is out there. You have been warned. So now let's go into the main storyline. What I liked, what I did not like. Is there any fun elements? So first of all, there's a new character called Shirley. I love her. She's adorable, she's very endearing. I got attached to her very quickly. I like that there's multiple short stories. So without going into more romance elements, but with just going into the another story, Lupin's gang, there's a lot of short story elements that I think are very fun, and they don't get boring. It's very fast paced, and I really like that. There is a new character. Like I said, we talk a lot about Herlock Sholmes that we've briefly mentioned in the first game, but now you also get his right hand, which is John H. Watson. I love him. This is another character that got introduced that I'm absolutely obsessed with, and I'm kind of mad that he's not romanceable. I get it, because he's getting married, like in the original Sherlock Holmes, you know? It makes sense. But I wish he was romanceable. He's so cute. He's so sweet. So another thing I really liked was another story, The Lupin's Gang. It was really refreshing, it was very different. It was like it showed that in the same universe you could have two different stories happening at the same time, which was really nice for me because I love storytelling at its finest and I like having like side stories like this. I love the new friend, like I said, Shirley, amazing, I love her. I think, in my personal opinion, that the CGs, or like the reward pictures that you get, depending on the storyline that you follow, are higher quality and much better than in the first one. Which is really hard to beat, because I did give it 10 out of 10 graphics-wise in the first game. But the CGs are just another level. I think they're so much better and more detailed, and a little bit more like light. So there's a lot of like fluff, feathery sparkles. I like that a lot. I really like the twin brother route. It's not really the twin, it's just a brother. I always say twin brother for some reason because they have that kind of vibe. But I do like his storyline. As much as he thinks he's a little piece of shit, I like his storyline, honestly. I like the relationship that they're trying to recreate between brother and sister. I think it's very endearing, it's very sweet. I love the Herlock Sholmes route as well, because finally you can have some romance elements to him, and his route is another story again. Again, this fandis gives a lot of side stories of side plots that happen at the same time as the main storyline. So Herlock Sholmes, of course, has like his nemesis and his storyline and his detective part, and I think it's really cool. You have more elements with Deli, so Delacroix too. You have more elements with him and his interaction with Cece, and that brings little butterflies to my heart. Like, I don't want any romance with Delacroix. It's a child. It's a child. But I think his relationship with Cece, the dog, is so cute. It's so endearing. I love it. Now, for the things that I don't like, you know how I mentioned the brother side? Sometimes there is some romantic undertones. They're not super obvious, but just enough to make you uncomfortable. So in that sense, I'm not too happy about that. I understand that they're trying to have like the reconnection and stuff like that, but they do a lot of CGs about him blushing or him being like uncomfortable with the proximity of his sister, and that's a little bit too much romantic undertone for me. That makes me a little... I don't like it that much. Also, there's another character that has been introduced previously, but you see more of him now, and he's not romanceable, which makes me angry. Alistair. I swear, I did not mean Alistair whatsoever. I meant Hansel! I meant Hansel. Hansel? I meant that one! Thanks. He's in Saint-Germain's backstory, and you don't get to romance him, but his character design is so good, and like, there was potential. It's like John H. Watson. Like, yes, he gets married, but there's potential that could have happened for a romantic character. And finally, the after stories are amazing, but they're too short! They're so short! I wish they were longer. So that being said, for the main storyline, I give it a 6 out of 10. It could have been better, but honestly, for the price and for the amount of content you get, it's pretty good. So main story is a 6 out of 10. Now, as I said, the graphics, the CGs are on top of what already was in Guardians of Rebirth. And in Guardians of Rebirth, I had already given it a 10 out of 10. So graphics here, if I could give it 11, I would. But it's a 10 out of 10. For the translation, it's taking a little bit of a dip. So for translation, I gave it a 5 out of 10. There's a lot of typos. There's a lot of like no spaces, weird periods, with weird commas. Like, it could have been double checked before being published. For the mechanics, I give it a 7 out of 10. Again, there's not a lot of romance that you can pick options for in this game because it is a fan disc. You usually follow the story that was already prepared without options of choices. So that's a little like, it lacks interaction. So I'm like, that's why it's not having such a high out of 10, because there's not enough interaction. It's more like a visual novel with no options. So you just read. Also, when you can have options, you don't have a tracking option again. So it's a little complicated. I give it a 7 out of 10, because even if it's just reading the story, it's very quite clear what the buttons are and what they do and how to fast forward, how to back, how to retrack, rewind, hear the voice again. It's very clear and it's very easy to follow, so I give it a 7 out of 10 for mechanics. Now we're getting into the biggest part of this game, which are the side stories, the character stories. There's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 characters this time. The first time there was only 5. Now there's 7. I will go with the new ones first, and then delve into the other ones that were in the previous game. So, for Finis' backstory, it's very bittersweet. There's a bit of angst. Actually, there's a lot of angst, but not violent gore angst, but like emotional angst. They're reconstructing their family. It's like there's awkward protectiveness from both sides, which is kind of like, it's kind of weird at times. He's defensive about her, but he tried to sacrifice her like not 2 months ago. Like, the events are so close together. He's going through a lot of character development in a very short period of time, which is kind of awkward. And it happens after the main storyline. All of these happen after the main storyline, except for Herlock Sholmes, if I'm not mistaken. I think Herlock Sholmes, his story happens during and after the main storyline. So for Finis, it's kind of a weird thing for me. For Herlock Sholmes, like I said, his story is like at the same time and a little bit after the main storyline. It's quirky, he's a bit clumsy, he doesn't really know how to deal with romance, he's a fucking genius detective. He still makes fun of Watson for getting married. It's really cute, but at the same time, it's a bit bland. Romance-wise, because the story for Herlock is so focused on like his angst, and his romance is a bit bland because it's so focused on angst and his competition with Moriarty that you don't get as much romance elements that you did in the first game with the original Bachelors, the original romantic interests. So even though it's his first introduction as a romantic character, there's not that much romance. There is some, but it's really clumsy, and it's really awkward to mimic how he's just so obsessed with his competition with Moriarty. It's basically Sherlock Holmes from the murder mystery. It's basically, yeah, but he's a Bishonen and he looks cute. I don't know, like, he's basically, it's Sherlock Holmes, but anime style. The elements of his storyline are not, like, super accurate to the books or to the original Sherlock Holmes, but they're heavily inspired. When it comes to Saint-Germain, now it's really like all these after stories with the main cast, the main romantic interest, are after the main storyline, and they're heavily focused on how to rid Cardia of her poison. So in the case of Saint-Germain, it's very, very angsty. He's extremely possessive, he's jealous. It's heavy. It is quite heavy. There's a lot of tragicness. Of course, the ending is good because it's a fan disc, it needs to do fan service. But to get to that ending is a bit exhausting. Not gonna lie at all. It is a bit exhausting. It is very heavy, very angsty, and he's like possessive and jealous, and like he's always wondering like, does she really like me? And sometimes it's a lot. As for Victor Frankenstein, in his case, the poison is healed. He has healed it, everything is amazing, everything is da-da-da-da-da, they're living normal lives. You get a bit of the side romance story in his story. Like, let me make it clearer. In Victor Frankenstein's story, you get a little nudge nudge wink wink about the Queen Victoria's romance story with her bodyguard Leonhardt. That's kind of cute, I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of cute. But if I want a side story of the Queen, let me choose it. Don't let me stay with Victor Frankenstein. Like, don't make me go through it with Victor Frankenstein. I want his side story, not the Queen, not Leonhardt. His. So that was a little bit like, why? I was really confused about it. But it is really nice to have like the friendship bonds that Victor creates with the Queen, creates with the other romantic interests. There is a little bit of angst with the organization idea that's in Saint-Germain's backstory. There's a little bit of angst there, but all in all, very squishy. For Abraham Van Helsing, I cannot stress this enough. This man is so squishy. Oh, I did not expect it. When you first meet him in the first game, you do not expect for him to be this squishy. He is so squishy. Oh my goodness. You go on a date, you go like check out wedding dresses, like you have like very lovey-dovey scenes, like a lot of kissing, it's very fluff. you get the first quarrel and how Helsing, like Van Helsing, doesn't know how to deal with it. He asks help with the other the other romantic interests. There's a lot of comic relief because the friends are helping him solve the problem, but they're not helping him that much, to be completely honest. They're trying to push him in the right direction, and it's very sweet and funny. There's a tiny little bit of angst towards like his past, but besides that, his storyline is mostly squishy. For Impy Barbicane, what can I say? It is my favorite storyline. He still is a flirt. He goes more into depth towards his dream of reaching the moon. You get to see like his hopes. It's very fun. There's no angst whatsoever. It's literally his life after the main storyline, just like tinkering in mechanical stuff to try to reach the moon. There's a little bit of romance. There's like some cuddles, some touches, some cooking together. It's really cute. It's super cute. It's very light, and I like it a lot. As for Arsène Lupin, there's two parts to his backstory, and they're not separated. It's just me personally, I've made the difference. There's two parts to his side story. The first part is the backstory of Isaac Beckford. So Isaac is the father of Cardia. Cardia, her full name is Cardia Beckford. So in the backstory of Arsène Lupin, we explore a little bit more of the past of the father. What happened to him? How did he become this way? How did it lead to the main event, to the main storyline? Lupin actually helps Cardia discover more about her father, more about her family before everything happened. Who was she? How was their relationship? A little bit of reconstruction. It's very bittersweet. You kind of get a little bit sentimental for the father, which in the first game, you hate him. You want to hate him. You despise him. And in the second game, they're like, wait, hold on. Maybe there's more to the eye. And it destroyed me. It destroyed me. Now for the second part of Arsene's backstory, it's all about him. It's all about him being very lovey-dovey, being very shy, he is Fluff McFlustered. He is so shy, he gets flustered, and like the CGs for his storyline specifically, ooh, they're so cute. They're so cute! So all in all, for the side stories, I give it an 8 out of 10. They were really good, except for Finis's and Herlock Sholmes that were a little bit awkward or had some elements that I wasn't sure about. They're an 8 out of 10. The side stories are pretty solid. And honestly, in my next review for Wintertide Miracles, they kind of build on the Finis and Herlock Sholmes, which makes them even better for the third game, which is the second fan disc. But for now, in this game, it's an 8 out of 10. And now for the final score. For the graphics, we have a 10 out of 10. The main storyline, we've got a 6 out of 10. For the translation, a 5 out of 10. This could have really been much better. For the mechanics, a 7 out of 10. And for the side story, an 8 out of 10. So that gives us a grand total, a 7.2 out of 10. Since it is over 5, that means it is worth buying. Honestly, it is worth it. It's very fast-paced, but honestly, it suits the soul. It is really, really good. I highly recommend it, and I hope that you liked this review once again. Like and subscribe, leave a comment if there's any game that you would like me to review. I have to play the game completely to be able to review it, just as a heads up, and I will see you in the next review for Wintertide Miracles.